update of what's happening at my house, not my parents' house. As those of you who do follow, you know that the parents' house is a preserve, and we have been doing some internal work now that the year of grieving is over. You can see where we've started to put things in order. The living room is straight. It used to be like full of crap, and we still have that room to sort. It's a weekend per weekend thing. We've actually, or rather, my husband has thoughtfully worked really hard in this room today. I'll show you it when it's finished. This was my mother's bird room. She, you know, and so I'm going to keep with the theme for her because I did promise her some, no real changes. It's just there's so much that was literally falling apart. Sorry, Mom, I've got to break my promise there. I'm not having roaches and junk around me. But my house up north is the issue today. And this is something that happened yesterday. But it's actually something that's been happening for quite some time. Because when we bought that house up north, location undisclosed, there was kickback from the get-go. They actually tried to keep us from buying the house. We don't know who. We just know that the situation went so far as they actually accused me of stealing my husband's identity because I was handling the paperwork because he was deployed overseas. And so it's been that way. And the neighbors and I want to be friendly. All right, everybody out of here. I want to be friendly, but I used to do surprise gifts on the porch for Christmas and all sorts of things. And my efforts have been in not used to have a better looking yard, and then hard times began to hit all over and over again. And then with what's happening here, and I've been away for an extended period of time. Now, part of the reason why I've been away from the house for an extended period of time is I have literally not had a way to get back. The car that we bought only a few months ago went kablooey. For starters. I think I'm going to hang in this room, even though, no, I'm going to hang in this room. And, okay, it went kablooey, so I've been trapped. I was supposed to be back months ago. While we were gone, some things have happened. Now, the first time we had to leave for an extended period of time, I have to say that I come back, and I came back before he did, where he was retiring out of the Army, and I came back early to get to my house and start handling things. And I had a friend of mine, who is now deceased, in the house living there for free to take care of it while I was away. Then that giant tornado hit, and a lot happened. So things happened like trees that I owned. I did not want chopped down. People chopped down because they felt like it. My friend, I told her not to do it. She did it anyway, type deal, And, neighbors, the neighbor next to us was having a hard time. She has a lot of property. So I would mow part of her property to help out and everything. But it was impossible to go outside because of the two sets of neighbors, Yap Yap dogs. They may be small. Oh, they won't hurt you. I have been bitten by all three dogs. Sure, it was ankle bites, and it could have been worse if I had not turned. But the fact that these dogs bite is a problem. Not just because they're biters, and they might bite a toddler, although apparently some people don't believe in going outside and getting fresh air. But there was this bigger dog that had come briefly, and the Yap Yaps, hi, I'm recording. The Yap Yaps taught the bigger dog to be aggressive. I felt like I had to carry a 45 to my freaking mailbox. So that song I wrote, Caw Caw, about the crows attacking the neighbor's dog, that's where that comes from. So it's been like this. You couldn't walk down the road for Yap Yaps going after you, so any exercise was not happening as far as outdoor activity. One Halloween, I had decorations up only on my property, but the neighbor didn't like them, so she waited and took them all down once. She, didn't like my Halloween decorations. It was a cemetery, and I had a string for my ghosts. She didn't like that. The biggest problem neighbor has even done such lovely things as she planted a rose bush in my front yard. Planted a rose bush. We felt compelled right about that time to go into debt to put in a fence in our backyard just so, one, I could go outside, and two, our dogs could go out, because those yap yaps were impossible, and my dogs deserve to be allowed to go outside and stretch their legs and play too. So we went into debt by thousands, and we had to have the land surveyed as law, get permits, the works. And at the time, it is important to note, we discovered some things about our property. First, it wasn't as far away from our house over on one side as my husband thought it was, because we're in a cul-de-sac, so the lots are pie shaped. But and there was this big tree, I think it's a sycamore, right next, like right next to our house, but the line literally goes across the tree. So I cannot remember, but I'm pretty sure that the neighbor has the bigger portion of the tree, and that we have like a root, which would make it her tree. I have to double check that. Uh, and on the other side, we discovered that the way the property line goes, we own part of the problem neighbor's driveway. It's not a lot, but it's more than she thought, because she thought owned part of our yard. But we own part of the pavement. Yeah, a little square about that big, on the corner, and that's where the bar is. So people have been putting in, and basically she had been planting and doing as she pleased. And then, she decided, okay, I'm going to have a conversation with you, and we're going to talk about sharing it, and she admitted this to me. She wanted the yard, even though they're pie shapes, to look more rectangular and square. And so she wanted to work with me to make that area where we touched prettier. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. But what I didn't realize is what she meant by that was that she was going to start acting like she owned my yard. And through the years, I've had to do such things as she was getting fiber optics put in for her internet. She's got her own yard. She was going to have them dig up my yard to put in the internet to her house, and route around her driveway to put in the internet to her house. I gave them permission that day on the agreement that I would get to have internet. I still don't have internet from that company. I have had to stop multiple times of people chopping down something, mowing over something. On the other neighbor's side, I had put in a decorative bush on the very corner of our yard, and they just mowed it down, you know. So that basically our yard has never really been treated as our own, as we have been bullied by the neighbors, and it's been getting tiresome. So with the fence, at least we had some autonomy back there, because it was really annoying. I was in the back one day working on doing a garden, and people were using our backyard as a highway to go to the golf course, which was over in the way, and they'd walk right by me, within a foot of me, through my yard, and I would say hello, and I wouldn't even get a hello. So the fence stopped some of that. But it's been that kind of passive aggressiveness for years and years and years. So when we returned from Fort Polk and I got back, the very first day I was back, one of my other neighbors on the far side came over to warn me that while we were away, being deployed, and, well, he wasn't deployed actually, he was in a training unit for that run. But while we were doing our service and to the country, I as the wife and he as the soldier, the neighbors, the immediate neighbors, had gotten together and tried to get together to get people together so they could have my home taken from me. We used the law to have the home taken from me. And he, fortunately, had stopped them. He was this stockbroker and a former part-time Army, and he was a vet, and he stood by us. And that's how I learned what kind of really vicious, underhanded people I had around me. And, I would trim the hedges, I'd mow, I'd hire people to mow. And that's another thing, I would hire people to mow, and I'd get to have them for a couple of times. And then sometimes, and I would get to see this, and sometimes it just would be weird, I would see a neighbor talking to them, and then they would stop mowing for us. Yeah, and it was a different neighbor. Like sometimes it was the immediate neighbor because I want their number to hire them, she told me once. And then it was like the neighbor three doors down. Yeah, there was and, you know, it's been getting nastier and nastier as time goes by. The environment. Uh, the neighbor's dog, one of the yap yaps, had taken my garbage and strewn it all around the front yard. I didn't know I was sick, so it probably was there maybe 2 days. And then I had the cops knocking on my door because somebody called and complained to the commissioner. Now, at least two of these neighbors have my phone number. And I've seen them band together to help each other out when a storm hit. They went around, checked everybody to see everybody was okay, except of course me. I just stood at the window and watched them do this. Uh, which kind of puts it into harassment of a special high school kind. Yeah, I did use the legal term harassment. Uh, and you know, it's just okay, fine. But the neighbor on the one side, the closest neighbor, the one that has been trying to take over my property, because you know there's laws up there that if under certain conditions, if they keep proving they're taking care of the property, that they can actually take ownership of the property. At least the parts are taken care of. Now, I had a long guy when we came down, and some miscommunications happened, and he quit, and I didn't know it. The neighbors had a phone number and could have called me. Nobody called me. Instead, they raised a stink. And we ended up with, you know, citations out the wazoo because they're calling and doing what they can to get us in trouble. Knowing that I was dealing with the death of my parents, knowing that we were under financial duress, these people did this. So there is a hardship that they have just added to the problem because they just increased our hardship. And okay, and emotional duress, I might add. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And not that any of this would hold, but this is the way I see it. And okay. So we get that straightened out, and my good friend who lives up there stepped up, and she has been going to my property 2 times a week to mow, to go into the house to make sure everything's okay, to check. She's been working on the backyard. I get updates ever so often of the sculpting she's doing because the fireflies, as I may have talked about on this channel before, are gone to the point that people were wondering where they were last spring. But my backyard is a firefly haven. And so, you know, she's minding that, and people get upset at how the backyard looks, despite the fact that it's behind a privacy fence. But it's a firefly haven, so there's only so much you can do. And also, the tree next to my house, the one that could be in dispute on who owns it, it did die completely. Its limbs have been dropping and hurting my fence and harming my fence. And woodpeckers moved into it. So then there's that. Now, I don't know if this particular breed of woodpecker is a protected breed. Probably not. But you find out, you know. And besides, may not be my tree. And so there's that. I'm pretty sure it's not. You see. I did offer to the neighbor to take care of it back when we had money, but then all this emotional duress and hardship happened. And the added hardship that has made it even harder to get things going because of the drama up there has happened. So there is that. I'll regroup my thoughts. It's been a lot of drama. It's been a lot of BS out of these people. And it's been unnecessary BS. You know, oh, hooray, they have, you know, a lot of money. But some of us, you know, every time we get up that way. I mean, there was this one time the husband was making the post office his career. Well, the postmaster of the post office that hired him or someone affiliated with that anyway. She happened to live across the street. Guess whose job offer was rescinded when he had a little bit of problem with his back. So he got a job at a different post office, but little things like that. Now that might be legit. But when he was hired, he told them about this that was coming. Uh, so it's just been drama after drama after drama. And we keep to ourselves. We don't play a lot of music. We don't have parties. The people up the way will have these big parties, and all of these people will come and they'll park the cars all up and down the road. I had people blocking my driveway. one time because of their parties. They'll have block parties and they'll block it off. I mean, they're just really, really, there are some serious people who are just not self-aware or selfish. Take your pick. But I think not being self-aware kind of equates being incredibly selfish. So that there is that. So there's been a lot happen. Like the Yap Yaps would tease my dogs through our offense, so that my dogs were turning aggressive thanks to the Yap Yaps, and I still wasn't allowed to let them out except hardly, or I had to watch and wait for when the one woman would put her Yap Yaps up, and she's got a fenced-in, privacy-fenced backyard too. And I have actually offered to fix her fence so that she doesn't have to put her dogs out in the front yard and harass the neighborhood, because I'm not the only person that has complaints about those dogs. And she has said, "Oh no, I can't afford to fix it, and I can't really, and what am I supposed to do?" And what it really is she doesn't want to put them up. Now, this woman who quote unquote cannot afford to get her fence fixed and can't do anything about her dogs. Yesterday, my friend goes to take care of the property for me. Everything is getting set up because supposedly my car is going to be out of the shop sometime before I die of old age. It's been there for a while. And as soon as it's up, I'm going up there. The plan is I'm supposed to be up there for months at a time, and everything's thrown off by being trapped down here. So so she goes over there because she's helping things get together while I'm away. She's making sure the lights are on. She's making sure the water's going, the whole works. Because we had the lights turned off for a little while because of what's going on. And it's like, okay, time to turn it back on now, right? And she gets there, and the problem neighbor, the big problem neighbor, because they're all problems, the one problem neighbor, we're just going to call her problem neighbor. I have other words, but we're just going to call her problem neighbor. She has a bunch of fencing stuff where she's going to have a fence put in that day along our line. And Rebecca's like, and it looks like and Rebecca said, because they had put a string up to mark their line, that the string was in my property. Now, she couldn't get through to me because I had pulled it all night or so, I was sleeping, so she calls my husband, who, of course, popped off and said that he's calling the cops, and he told the cops basically that if something wasn't done, his answer was going to be to drive up there and fix it with a chainsaw. So, all right, these are the stories I'm getting told. Neighbors up to her shenanigans again. I mean, the rosebush she planted in my yard after it was established where the line really was, she decided to take it upon herself to have it chopped down because she didn't want it there no more. And it's like, that's not your rosebush, sweetheart. You planted it in my yard and left it there. It's my rosebush now. But all right, I let her try to chop it down, and it just came back because roses are more tenacious than people think they are. But it's been things like this. Oh, and the kicker on the suspicious kicker is there were some hedges, because we have a walkout basement, and it's got like a little courtyard with like a cliff where the cliff goes to the front yard. And I had some hedges that were doing okay when we moved in. And then I watched as from the problem neighbor's shed to the hedges, things died in a line coming out of her shed. And all right, something got in the ground. Now, between our backyard and her backyard was, and I don't know if they're still there, they were when I left, a whole bunch of giant pine trees that began to die. And at the time, because we hadn't had the survey yet, it was in contest. So she clearly had decided she owned part of my front yard, but didn't want nothing to do with the backyard. And so I had to clear out my savings to have these dead trees cut down because they were going to fall on my fence, or whatever. Well, yeah, they were going to fall. And then it was a big contest. So then we got the survey, and it turned out that she basically had tricked us, or circumstances had tricked us, because it was some people cutting trees that had come, and they were very pushy. So I'm not going to blame her completely for that, so much as she also didn't take responsibility. And I had lost all my money cutting down someone else's freaking problem trees. So far what I have seeing up to this point of the story is a pattern of They want to claim ownership to something that is already being maintained and is easy, and they think will make their property look pretty. But they don't want to handle the things that are expensive. They would rather point fingers at me, the person who makes the least money on the block. Sound like your typical selfish people, doesn't it? Yeah. These people attend a Presbyterian church on my ad. Oh, and one neighbor, I'm not going to say exactly which, she works with juveniles at a juvenile detention facility. That works with, yes, that kind of attitude works with juveniles. So, all right. And so yesterday she's going to put in a fence, and I got to see the pictures, and it did indeed look like the fence was going to go where it should not go. Although I find it amusing that if they had went ahead and dug that fence, they might have accidentally cut that internet cable that I had been cajoled into allowing cut into my yard. That would have been amusing, and I would have refused to allow it to be fixed too. After especially after yesterday. And I can tell you that after yesterday, from now on, whenever I have any encounter with these people, even a hello, I will be having a camera running as of yesterday. Because what I have to say from here is not verifiable except by the witness. And although there were 4 people involved, only one's probably going to back me up, because you know how much liars people like this are. So there goes that. But my friend Rebecca is there, and then they come, and the problem neighbor starts shouting, "I know where my property line is," and she's saying a whole bunch of rude stuff about me, mad as hell. Rebecca puts me on speaker, and I was like, "Please tell me what's going on." I wanted both sides of the story. I'm trying to be fair and mature, so I said, "Please tell me what's going on," and proceeded to have my shit ripped, because according to that woman, I had been complaining about the property line since I moved in. Mm-hmm. That's what she said. Those were her words. And I was like, no, I haven't. No. To segue out of that, I've been complaining about how somebody else has been trying to take over my property and taking liberties and having my property cut up and taking me for granted and my kindnesses for granted and pushing me around since I moved in, which is different. It's very different. And so and I was like, and she's just really rude. And the more she got brave, because at first she's kind of being nice, but she realized that she had her friend standing there, I guess. And I'm guessing on that, but it's what it seems like. And so she got brave and started getting really rude. And it was like, "I'm putting up a privacy fence because your yard is ugly. And I don't care what you have to say. That fence is going in today." And then she's proceeding to tell me, I was like, okay, but I've got a survey on because I was like, I know where my property line goes. So I was like, okay. And oh no, really? Wow. I hope that all that talk wasn't for nothing. And it was how else did she put it? I was like, okay, and I know where it is, and then someone said that they didn't know how to find the line. I was like, well, I have a survey. I don't care about your survey. And then she's ranting on about how I had just better pay for her survey for her fence. But she was going to be putting in a fence today. And okay. And I let her get ruder and ruder, and I finally said, well, since you've chosen to speak to me this way, I have to tell you that what you're doing is going to involve trespass ordinances, because I had already looked up my rights before talking to these people. So I knew what was going to have to be done and where to go. And, and she checked herself, and she's getting all upset. And I was like, and I was like, also, I need you to, she's like, I'm not trespassing. It's my property. I was like, okay. But it was you that planted a rose bush on my property, and she's getting angrier. And I was like, it's your dog. And I was like, I've been bitten by your dogs. No, you have not. I was, yes, I have, I said. And then I remembered, and I was like, oh, yeah, a guy working on my porch was bitten as well. And at about that time, this woman, and I'm not going to identify her name here, but she's like, I'll talk. And I'm a third party. And then I listened to them take my friend Rebecca's phone out of her hand. Don't worry, we're not going to hurt your phone, dear. Talk to her like she was 2. Which is something that happened with my neighbors before. There was these dogs running loose and they couldn't get them to come to their house because they knew who they belonged to. And I was like, I've got a leash, but they, so I am the one that corralled up the dogs and got them to where they could go. And they were like, thank you, like I was two. And, because it's like, pretty sure I'm the one that was able to get the dogs to do what I wanted while you guys fooled around and milled around like morons. So don't talk to me like I'm two because you guys are the ones that are acting like you're two. But that's the way they see us. Maybe it's my southern accent. Maybe it's that I'm not white. But that's how they treat us. Like we're ignorant infants with something they want, which, the age old I'm having to defend my land story, I guess, if you know what I mean. But that's just being dramatic. Uh, so they've got my friend's phone. And they're proceeding to tell me, well, about how it's not going to be on the property, but it had already come out that they didn't know how to find the property line. I was like, let me tell you how to find the property line. And I was like, go to the corner of her driveway. And at about that point, you could hear in the background, the neighbor got really loud. She got really loud about it, really protesting. But the third party, the quote unquote fair third party, went to the driveway. I was like, "Are you standing?" I was like, "Stand at the corner of the concrete. I own that corner." And I heard her breath catch, which that would have not been the first time that somebody had come with problems from that neighbor that had been told that she owned my property. So I was like, I was like, "Now you're standing there. Look at the fence. I am the one, I put the fence to the very edge of our property," I said to her. I was like, "From here to there, that is the property line." And so then they started talking it out, and all of a sudden, problem neighbors trying to act reasonable and everything. And it's like, but the fence is going up today and everything. But it had already been shown that, you know, yeah, if I were an analyst, even if I were an unbiased arbiter, I would have been questioning that check. I would be questioning the story, and I would be questioning the protests. I'm not going to quote Shakespeare perfectly, but methinks he protesteth too much. Uh-huh. So, uh, so that came out, and it was like, it's going to go up today. And it was like, but it's going to, and the quote unquote third party is like, but it's going to be here. It's not going to be on your property. I'm like, that's fine. What I didn't tell them was, please put up your stupid spite fence. Yes, it's the legal term. I had already learned the legal term before I even talked to these horrible people. I was like, please put up your spite. I'm thinking, please put up your spite fence, because I wanted to put up a spite fence because she was such a problem. And I was really sick and tired of having to keep people from digging up my property or taking things or chopping things down. I had trees chopped down, bushes, expensive ones, $50 ones chopped down. I mean, because she didn't like them or whatever. I mean, you know, I'm tired of the expense of dealing with people like that. And then the third party started to tell me about how my house is not kept up and they have been mowing for me. And Rebecca's standing right there. So I heard Rebecca's very indignant gasp. That pissed her off. And why wouldn't it? Rebecca goes twice a week to handle my house. Twice a week. I mean, we had a space of about 4 weeks of not having a lawn guy with no one letting me know that he wasn't coming anymore. And me not knowing what was going on. And that is it. The rest of the time, the house has been maintained. Super maintained. And so then I was like, well, there's no sense. There's no need to talk to me that way. There's no need to act like that. And that's when the quote unquote fair third party revealed her position as she started telling me how everybody in the neighborhood is just frustrated. So my husband gets a hold of the law. And because I'm like, and I got on the cop before she goes out there because we're talking on the phone first, and I explained there's probably nothing you can do, but I will need a report for our lawyer because we are now officially trying to find a lawyer that we can afford. It's even more financial duress and hardship, but the neighbors have pushed us to this. And Turns out this particular cop had been called out to our house a couple of times, so she was very familiar with the property. So I proceeded to tell her about how the line was, and I told her a little bit about how the neighbor has always been a problem. And then I started talking about the parts that I am pretty sure people are complaining about, like the dead trees that are, if they're still there, they're literally not mine. Literally. Uh, I am not legally allowed to just chop them down, unlike my neighbors who took it upon themselves to chop down my buckeye tree in the front yard before it was completely dead. I I mean, if they had asked me, I probably would have said yes, sure, thank you, because it was dead or dying. But it's the fact that I wasn't asked. There was a decorative tree in my by my mailbox that I had that I was cultivating, and it's gone. Um, if they're going to do that, the least they can do is do some useful things like get rid of the vine that likes to try to choke up the bush by the driveway. Be useful about it if you're going to be a twat. Uh, and so then I explained, and then I'm, just because I was talking, I mentioned the big dead tree, the one that if it fell would crush my house and probably me in it, the hazard. That all it really needs, because it is a habitat, is to have the big branches trimmed so that it's not such a hazard. And I was like, and that one is mostly on the neighbor's property because of the way the property line runs. And the cop said a knowing ah, and I was like, uh-huh, they've been complaining about that tree. And I told her, I was like, I was originally going to chop it for them, but it's $6,000 and I just don't have that now. I figure if somebody has the money to have a fence put in, a privacy spite fence put in, she's got the money to fix her backyard so that her yap yaps don't get out in the yard to make it difficult for the neighbors to go outside. I figure if somebody has the kind of money for that, then they've got the money to replace the hedges that they're shed poisoned. Which, yeah, that was the funny thing about that. Her and I, she was doing her little fake friendly thing, and I was still going with it back then. I won't anymore. And I had casually mentioned that the way things died, it looked like the area had been poisoned, and that I was pretty sure somebody had killed my bushes. And she did a, that guilty jump people do. And then I explained because I was putting new things in, and she was like, "What are you putting in? I'm so sick. Let me do my plastic credit card smile." And I had explained that I had to have something on that ledge. I had to have something because without a bush there to hold the ledge, it would cave in and it would be big damage to my home. And you should have seen, I mean, the whole shoulder jerk. I mean, yeah, that was pure guilt. And it's like, so she knew. She knew. I don't think, I don't know if it was on purpose. It was because it did poison. Well, it only poisoned parts that she thought were mine. So, I mean, there is that interesting coincidence, but there's no getting around. It was getting out of her shed. It was coming out of her shed, whatever it was. Uh, so yeah, these people that have the money to run things down and cause trouble, yeah, she needs to mind her own home because I'm pretty sure she lives in a pretty glass house at this point. And that's what happened. If I could get up there sooner, I would. I would have already been on the road. I have been needing to get up there. I have songs to write, I have recording to do, and besides, that's my house. And being down here is nice, but being able to go back and forth is better. Well, and so I've decided to do a reverse snowbird thing where snowbirds will, come down here in the warm months. I mean, yeah, during the summer, or I don't remember how it works. Something about yeah, I don't remember how it works. All I know is when it's down here and I can go to the beach is when I intend to be down here and then up there. But there's also my work, the fairs. I've had to call in to 3 fairs so far that I was supposed to work because of my vehicle situation. So maybe the neighbors don't believe me. I get a lot of people who don't believe me about things. Like Walmart, like the Walmart kerfuffle that happened, and the guy was like, supposedly your battery was dead. I was like, well, I'm pretty sure it was dead because I had to have a jump to leave your freaking parking lot. But yeah, about that. It's like on camera. You can check it out, pictures. Uh, so these problems, neighbors causing problems, and all we want to do is be left alone. But as of now, As soon as I can get a hold of the right kind of cameras, there will not be anything with them that will not be recorded because of what happened with them stealing my friend's phone. Ever since they handed back her phone, and I know they fiddled with it a minute because they wouldn't give it right back, her and I have not been able to call each other. She has not been able to call out to anyone. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Uh, we can't call in. We can text and that's it. Which hers is just a common little old flip phone, so texting is not the best thing for her. Yeah. And that's just kind of weird and convenient. I mean, and all this weirdness, like there was this one time this woman came to my front door there and she wasn't there for what she said was. You knew she was there to investigate. She just pushed her way in and sat on my couch. So that's going to change too. It's going to be, I don't know who you are. I'm not opening the door because you were clearly here to snoop. I don't know what you were snooping for, but you're not welcome. We had people, how much would you sell your house for? Oh, we were going to sell. But unfortunately, with the VA loan conditions and the condition of the house and the duress we're being put under, which gives us less funds to fix up the house, we would not get enough from the house to pay the mortgage right now, much less. The realtor suggested I just continue fixing it up because he could see where I was working on it. He suggested I just continue fixing it up and Airbnb it. The only people I would consider selling that house to would have to be willing to pay me 4 times what it was worth and be the most obnoxious assholes that neighborhood had ever seen at this point. We're talking the kind that they would miss me. That's not going to happen, so. But so now I've got to go up there and hopefully we can find a good lawyer who's willing to talk to us. We're not looking for a lawyer in town because we know how the town is and we know that it's mostly cliques and friends. So I'm trying a veteran lawyer, a lawyer. He went to Desert Storm. I'm going to try him first, and then I'm just going to start shopping around. And if I have to go a city over, so be it. But going to a lawyer that's not with a clique, I can tell you from experience, is the best thing. Yeah. So that is the update. More for me than you. I think that's all I have to record so that I can remind myself later. Bye bye.